So here I have a FM synthesizer, and I've been thinking about putting together an FM synthesizer in this way for a long time, and just haven't done it. Anyway, a lot of FM synthesizers, or all of them, are based on this notion of having different operators, or programs, I suppose, where there's some kind of like tree where the tree shows you the way in which the different oscillators essentially are connected to one another, and if an oscillator is connected to another, that probably means it's modulating it in some way. And then FM synthesis has its name because it's frequency modulation. That's what FM stands for. So on a lot of like classic FM synthesizers, you're scrolling through all these different like trees or methods of interchanging the essentially the block diagram, the signal flow, stacking the oscillators in different ways. That's also confusing for people at first too. One thing I've done here, or the whole thing that I've done here, is I've put 4 oscillators together, and they basically just all go everywhere. And that maybe sounds a little chaotic, but you have a mixer. You have a lot of different mixers, I guess, anyway. So you can still stack the oscillators however you want, but essentially do that in real time, because you don't have to pick this predetermined program that is, a tree of, or a predetermined block diagram. You're essentially setting that up in real time. So if you want to essentially connect your oscillators in series, then you would be, so here's my first oscillator. If I want the output of oscillator 1 to be an input to oscillator 2, I would do this. And this is the amount of frequency modulation in total. So then if I want oscillator 2 to be an input to oscillator 3, this is oscillator 3. This is the input mixer to oscillator 3. So we can have feedback. Oscillator 3 can modulate itself. But I'm doing a kind of a series tree here. So oscillator 1 modulates oscillator 2. Oscillator 2 modulates oscillator 3. So the input to oscillator 4 should now be oscillator 3. Oops. Okay. So now I have this kind of series tree connected, and it doesn't make any sound because here's the output mixer, and I'm going to turn up only oscillator 4. So everything that comes before it is oscillating it, or is frequency modulating it. Doesn't sound that wacky because I don't actually have the frequency modulation turned up, so the net effect is kind of 0. But if I do this, it should. So you can hear some of that FM. Let's turn it up more. Make it sound weird. And that's really the whole idea. So these individual oscillators as of now are just sinusoids, but I can select, let's just play oscillator 1 because this one should just be a pure tone here. Nothing is frequency modulating it, so the frequency modulation is turned all the way down, number 1, and there's nothing coming onto the input anyway. And also, just maybe to show, I can do feedback. So this is oscillator 1 going back into oscillator 1, and FM is turned down, but let's bring it up slowly. Okay, and so from here I can change the octave. Hard to hear it down. That's better. And then I've chosen to allow just oscillators 3 and 4 be stationary. So these are essentially multi-use. They can be an LFO. So let's just take oscillator 3. If I turn the FM down now, oscillator 3 is essentially just going to be a pure. Well, it's not going to be modulated by anything else. So oscillator 3, and then I'm going to turn it to a really low frequency. So I can turn it to 5 hertz from here, and that's getting sent here. But then I can turn it down another octaves more from there. So, and I want, let's just modulate. So start with 1. It's just where we were. So this is oscillator 1. It's the only thing that's turned up. I'm going to modulate oscillator 1 with oscillator 3. You can hear it like an LFO, and I can cut that rate in half, and again in half, and I can do another half an octave with the fine control here. So the fine control, so you can pretty much get it anywhere you want. You can do whole octaves here and then another half octave here, so that allows you to essentially get anywhere in between. You can do half octave up and a half octave down. So this is basically an LFO. I can use either of these two oscillators as LFOs instead. Of course, the LFO is kind of an arbitrary distinction. Of course, just means low frequency oscillator. So instead of key tracking these to follow the input pitch of the keyboard, I think perhaps LFO in function is an oscillator that has a fixed frequency. So it can be really low like that, and also can just be really high. And so yeah, so this is a really, I think, good way to experiment with FM synthesizers. Is you basically have, all these infinitely many combinations almost, and I think I'm going to continue to build this, maybe add another oscillator and allow all of them to be either fixed or key tracked, and maybe add different wave shapes to the oscillators as well. But I think this is a really intuitive way to think about FM synthesis, and hopefully kind of seeing this demonstration was helpful or useful or inspiring, whatever.